I like George St-Pierre. I respect him, and you know, the guy was never anything but class when he fought for us. He was an absolute class act. You know, he took Canada to a whole nother level.
There are many people that do martial arts, but only a few become legends. To become the champion, one has to put in a lot of effort, hard training sessions, and a bulletproof mentality at the very least, and not everyone has that.
It's the undisputed UFC Welterweight Champion!
Today, we will overview one of the most exciting and inspiring stories in the world of combat sports. It will introduce us to a little boy that went through a tough school of survival, who turned his fists into tools of discipline and fear into fuel for great victories.
Look, George St-Pierre, you know, he took 4 years off and everything like that, but he's still one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time.
Get comfortable as you're about to see George St-Pierre himself and his path in mixed martial arts. Have a great time.
This guy was my father's favorite fighter. You know, it's like, I grew up watching his fights. You know, it's honor to stay with him here.
Early years and professional sport.
A few years ago, I drove my car on the street in Montreal. It's like in the evening. I see a tall guy coming at me, and he begged for money. Put down my window. This guy, I swear it's true story, is the guy that used to bully me in school.
Whoa.
I say, I don't want to say his name, but I say, hey, wait a second, I park my car, park the car, go talk to him. I say, what the hell you doing here, man? He's like, and he thought I would be angry because when he see me, he saw his reaction, like shoot, like now I'm world champion, you know,
right.
like I can beat him up, you know.
Right.
Back in the day, he was like 3 years older than me, was bigger, he was beating me up in the bus, this guy.
George St-Pierre was born on May 19th in 1981 in Quebec, Canada, to the family of Roland and Paulina St-Pierre. He is an older child and has 2 younger sisters. As you might have already guessed, the childhood of our hero wasn't the easiest one. The school that he attended was situated in a rough part of town, to say the least. All fingers and toes wouldn't be enough to count how many times the boy was robbed, humiliated, and beaten up by other pupils. How he was bullied, assaulted every day after classes, and consistently offended mentality. Such an environment strongly affects one's worldview and future life. However, there are 2 paths in this case. Either a person breaks, resents the whole world, and becomes the same monster who hides their insecurities behind aggression and takes it out on the weak, or the inner strength starts to call them for justice. They will resist this state of affairs, learn how to stand up for themselves, and protect others from these bullies, showing bravery, courage, and valor.
Growing up, I had problems at school. I was getting picked on and bullied by a lot of the kids that were older, bigger, and stronger than me. They had a special program with kids that were in my school. They were like restarting every year because they couldn't pass the exam, so they were like 3 to 5 years older than every kid. So 3 to 5 years when you're young is a big difference. I was a nerd too a little bit. And it's not cool to be a nerd. So I don't know why. It's where I come from. It was more, you know, your hockey players. At school, instead of thinking and being focused on what the teacher was explaining, I was trying to figure out a way that I would get out of the class with my school book and reach the bus before I got beat up by the kids that were bullying me.
Yeah, the early period of so-called maturation was quite tough for a regular boy from Canada. However, since you're watching this documentary, it becomes clear that at a certain point, the teenager decides to put this injustice to an end. And though he was kind of forced to make this decision, the fact remains.
I don't know if it's genetic or not, there's a lot of alcoholic problem in my family. And yeah, it was bad. One time at school, I come back with some bruise. And And when I come home, I had a talk with my dad. My dad, he grabbed me, he say, "What the hell happened to you? What's going on in school?" Didn't want to tell, but he shake me and he say, "You have to tell me." So I cry and I tell him the truth. I say, it's like today in the school bus, there's a kid that he beat me. But I cannot do anything, because he's stronger than me and he's bigger than me. So even though I try to defend, he always get the upper hand. So it was a tough time for me. So my dad took me to a karate school, a local karate school. There's nowhere I was good, The only place I was good is when I compete in karate.
After starting to train in karate, George quickly developed passion for his new hobby. He loved to spend free time in the gym, and not only because at this place he was taught how to stand up for himself, but also because things weren't going too great for the guy at home. Training process was some kind of an outlet for him, and the gym the only peaceful place in the whole world, ran by order and discipline. Our hero got second dan at the age of 12 and continued his hard training until he turned 16. Around that time, he saw a fight of Royce Gracie at the first numbered UFC event. Back then, the legendary Brazilian choked out 3 opponents in one night, spending no more than 5 minutes in total. This spectacle inspired the teenager to such an extent that he was hooked on the idea to start learning other aspects of martial arts besides the one he chose many years ago. After some time, George's coach passed away, and it became the last straw for him in the matter of transitioning to other disciplines. Soon, St-Pierre began developing his striking technique, meaning pure boxing, as well as wrestling with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But before starting his career as an MMA fighter, he worked as a bouncer in the nightclub in Montreal called Fuzzy Brossard, and combined this working as a scavenger in the span of 6 months to pay for his tuition.
It's a very, it's a very hard path, and one of the happiest place for me to go and the saddest place to go, it's the gym. When I go train to the gym, it's the happiest place for me to go because I can practice the sport that I love, because I love training, I love the science of fighting. And it's very sad too, because after training, there's always some guys that come to me because they seek some advice. And I always give them advice regarding fighting, but a lot of them, my advice for them would be, "Hey bro, you should hang up your gloves and find a real job,"
Right,
because
some of them,
because
right?
I've seen this movie and it's not a good ending, my friend. like go find. But if I tell them the truth,
they'll get mad at you.
they get mad at me.
As we already mentioned, George St-Pierre was really inspired by the world of combat sports when he realized that besides karate, there are many other disciplines, no less effective and thrilling. He fell in love with this sport anew and hurled all efforts into expanding his knowledge of combat techniques. His usual training was immediately complemented with wrestling, BJJ, boxing, and Muay Thai. Of course, in some of the disciplines he was doing better from the start, in others, not so much, but that's normal. The most important thing was to lay the groundwork and the person's mere desire to develop in every possible direction, and all the rest would come later. And here's another essential thing. By the age of 20, George knew that he didn't have that many future prospects apart from the sport. That's why his life picture and priorities formed quite predictably. He needed to utilize his skills, show courage, and try to capitalize on all these efforts he put in throughout the years.
But I think it make you stronger to admit that you're scared, because you're not scared to say that you're scared.
Right.
Someone who doesn't admit it because he's scared to admit that he's scared. He's scared of himself, scared of what people are gonna think about him. I'm not scared what people are gonna think. They have to see me as I am. So I'm not scared to admit that I'm scared.
Mixed martial arts.
They beat me up, I tapped, then I came back. I said, "Oh, you want to do again? Okay, let's do again."
He hanging there getting his ass kicked on an everyday basis until the day that he stopped paying back. That's the difference between the champion and an ordinary man.
Our hero made up his mind to debut in mixed martial arts at the end of January 2002. But here's a catch. The problem of that time came down to the fact that it was quite hard to find scheduled events, somehow sign up, and only then perform, figuring out the opponent's name at the very last second. Now, it's easy to pick a promotion you want to join. You have an opportunity to study the information about your opponent, where they competed, when, and even watch the tape of their performances. But when the Canadian prospect was young, it wasn't possible. He came out to fight on January 25th at UCC 7 Bad Boys against Ivan Menjivar. Perhaps unexpectedly, this fight started with a vicious exchange. Ivan tried to distract George with an attack on the feet to get close and initiate a takedown. But it wasn't an easy thing to do against a big and jacked St-Pierre. As a result, the first takedown attempt was unsuccessful. Not wasting too much time, the debutant answered with a spinning kick and a Superman punch. Figuring that he had no business standing with George apart from eating shots to different levels, Menjivar used all his energy, knowledge and skills to hold George in the corner of the ring and search for an opportunity to take him to the ground. He managed to pull off something like that only 1.5 minutes later, though it seemed like the Canadian went down willingly, letting his opponent expend energy. While Ivan was on top and tried to catch our hero's face with looping shots, St-Pierre wasn't wasting any time either. He attacked him from the ground, causing his vis-a-vis some troubles. Very soon, the referee stepped in and put the fighters back up due to lack of activity. What you just saw from both sides is far from perfect, but that's a normal state of things. One shouldn't expect elite techniques from rookies, they will achieve perfection over time. But one already has an opportunity to see the potential. Even despite clear flaws in his technique, George St-Pierre looked a lot better. He actively attacked, was in good defense, was not afraid to get hit in the face, and readily worked at any distance, while Menjivar was one-dimensional and predictable. Here's another praise for George. He wasn't afraid to improvise on the fly. Even knowing that his opponent might react to his high kick, he threw it anyway, because he knew that he was not in danger on the ground. In other words, the debut performance of George St-Pierre can be given an A-, a B+ at the very least. Because he didn't work for points and didn't rely on the judges, only on himself and his abilities. In the end, it led him to a stoppage victory via TKO and a successful debut in mixed martial arts.
St-Pierre is going off right now, and what's going on now?
The next appearance of the Canadian prospect took place at the UCC event in summer called Battles. St-Pierre shared the ring with a fighter named Justin Bruckman. Just so you know, the local organization offered him a title shot right off the bat. Bruckman got taken down for the first time after 15 seconds. Our hero was holding him down till around the middle of the round, constantly switching positions. George St-Pierre didn't just lay and prey on Justin without any actions, and the referee is proof of that, as he didn't put the fighters back up. So, George had time to work from side control and half guard and mount. He showed his skills everywhere. When the guys got up, Bruckman suddenly thought that he had it all figured out and that his defense on the ground was intact. But in reality, it was St-Pierre's trap. Before the end of the 3rd minute, fighters got to the ground again. And now Justin finally realized his helplessness in this aspect, because our hero was mercilessly beating him up from the side control. You got to agree, a decent result of utilizing wrestling skills for an athlete who was doing only karate up until 16. A sad end in the title bout caught up to Bruckman with 1 minute left in the round. After getting retired from constant attempts to protect his face, he lost focus and gave up his hand for a submission. A tight armbar from St-Pierre did its thing, and our hero became the UCC Welterweight champion, though it was only his 2nd professional fight in MMA. Our hero got an opportunity to justify the trust of the organization and defend his title on October 11th. At UCC 11, the next level, George St-Pierre went up against Travis Galbraith. The title contender from Colombia unwillingly changed his body position at the start of the bout. George realized that his advantages were ground game, outstanding physicality, work ethic, and strict adherence to the game plan. That's why he acted on autopilot. He was masterfully holding Travis down on the ground. He made him work and defend, though there weren't too many things to defend from. St-Pierre was applying more mental than real pressure, and in his native Canada, he earned a reputation of a dangerous, well-rounded fighter who could twist you into a pretzel on the ground if needed. And the reputation should be respected, especially in the fight game. And Galbraith respected it with his total utilization of defense and no thoughts of getting back up. Why? Because he was sure that George wouldn't let him get up. That's how auto-suggestion works. What happens next, you might ask? It was all over rather quickly. GSP switched several positions, got to the most comfortable one, and beat his opponent to the pulp. A flashy TKO victory in 2 minutes and the successful defense of the Welterweight Championship. Then came 2003. On January 25th, a year after his professional debut, George St-Pierre had his 4th bout in UCC. It was the 12th numbered event called Adrenaline, where the Canadian faced Thomas Denny.
I'm Georges St-Pierre, the UCC Canadian welterweight champion. Tonight, that's my first international bout. Can you see that, wild man? Tonight, that's for you.
This fight started with a clinch and takedown attempt from the undisputed champion. Surprisingly, Thomas was doing well. He had a great balance and did not let himself get put down. However, this is true only for the first 70 seconds of the first round, because after that, the takedown was secured. And we say it again, on the ground. St-Pierre felt like a fish in the water, which can't help but surprise. He was in his element, though he began learning the ground game only recently. Our hero held Thomas on the ground till the bell, breaking his poor face with hands and knees from side control. And you can imagine how devastating a knee strike from a young and powerful GSP is. During those 5 minutes, George's opponent lost a lot of HP, to say the least. Let's get to the next round. It starts with a quick high kick, Superman punch, and lightning fast shot for the legs. To be honest, getting a little bit ahead, we still don't understand why Thomas didn't give in this episode. He did really bet on his survivability and the Canadians' fatigue? Of course, this question won't ever be answered, but it's still interesting to think about, because based on the first round, one could already figure out that Denny wouldn't be capable of getting up from under St-Pierre. And this would have happened only by the will of the champion himself, who was smart in that regard and made his opponent waste energy in attempts to get up. Anyway, what are we yapping about, you might ask? It's quite simple. We tried to get to the fact that George secured a TKO win closer to the end of the second round. An undefeated prospect with a belt on his waist continues to destroy opponents by stoppages and gain popularity in home country.
There was a couple of takeaways. This was years ago. This was probably 2013. And I still remember how strong that son of a bitch was. I mean, I'm talking about a weird strength. And a lot of it in his grip. When he would grab my wrist, and I'm sitting there fighting to get my arm free. I remember this strength. And another thing I remember about George is he would not stop a technique ever until it was perfect.
Yes, this pedantic, perfectionist-like and thorough approach to learning new techniques and constant sharpening of already acquired tools distinguished George from all young fighters of that time. Besides the fact that he already looked like a representative of a truly new generation with his own style, aura and vibe. Though nobody used that word back then, but it was the case. The viewers couldn't take their eyes off this well-built guy who spoke English with an accent but smashed everybody he shared the ring with. A flashy striking technique, rich arsenal that instills confusion in the heads of his opponents, and ground game that even the elite grapplers of the current era would be jealous of. In other words, a role model. The next appearance of GSP happened on November 29th, and this time not in the UCC organization. It was the TKO 14 Road Warriors event, and our hero's vis-a-vis was Pete Spratt. As he gained decent traction, the prospect from Canada already reached a proper level in terms of experience to know when to go for a takedown. You can see the proof of our words yourself. After throwing some sloppy front kick, Spratt gave up his leg to his opponent, which he paid for by getting taken down to the ground. From there, George began putting in his usual work, which consisted of total control over Spratt. Besides that, he let him know that scrambling on the ground was useless and resistance wouldn't lead to anything good for him. As usual, at first St-Pierre spent some time in the side control, then transitioned to full mount, and after that he decided to get behind his opponent's back from where he constantly kept him tensed up. In fact, very soon it led to an inevitable outcome, because Pete Spratt was no match to our hero in terms of ground game and all of its intricacies. After taking his back yet again, GSP locked a tight choke on the neck of a standing American who fell down and quickly surrendered.
He's under the chin. He's singing and that's it. He's up and it's over.
5-0 and all stoppages. The new force from Canada continues to conquer MMA. Transition to the UFC.
Great. I always been a great athlete, but I've never been the strongest, the fastest, or the biggest. I think what made the difference, it was my mind, and my team, the people that I work with. That I had a very solid team that helped me. When I analyze someone I was going up against, I was able to become his perfect nemesis and take him out of his comfort zone and bring the fight where I had the edge and slope the odds in my favor. That's why I believe I was doing very well.
For a long time, George St-Pierre has been training under the supervision of Nathan Markwood, Keith Jordan, and many other renowned athletes in the school of Greg Jackson called Submission Fighting Gaidojutsu in New Mexico. Some of Greg's students also accompanied GSP on his trip to Montreal so he could gain valuable experience from the representatives of TriStar Gym, where such fighters as Donald Cerrone and Rashad have trained for many years. As we already said earlier, the Canadian got hooked on the idea to get into the world of mixed martial arts since he first watched the fight of Royce Gracie in the UFC when the Brazilian dismantled an opponent who was a lot bigger than him. But that's not all. Our hero did not just want to become an MMA fighter. He was really inspired with the idea to become the champion of this organization and gain worldwide recognition. Because if you're the master of martial arts and this is recognized by the main MMA league, that means that you are on top of the world. Being a UFC champion indicates that you are better than everyone in your weight class and in the world. Who wouldn't be tempted by this idea? So, 5 finishes in a row with 0 losses happened to be enough for the world's best league's representatives to reach out to St-Pierre's manager. After short negotiations, the Canadian was set to debut at UFC 46 on January 31st of 2004.
UFC is the best organization. They have the best fighter all around the world, and for me it's a great honor for me to be invited to fight here.
The debutant managed to keep his perfect record and secured his 6th career victory by a unanimous decision. The judo genius in the face of Caro Parisian failed to handle the prospect's power and his experience in all kinds of disciplines. Closer to summer, UFC put GSP against the American fighter named Jay Heron, and they were scheduled to fight on June 18th at UFC 48. A former IFL welterweight champion didn't last even 2 minutes with our hero. George stopped Jay Heron via TKO, extending his win streak to 7 in a row. And in the post-fight interview, he also shared his plans for the future.
Not many people know Jake and Ron, but I've seen him train, and he is a phenomenal fighter, a very good wrestler, and George St-Pierre is just, he's phenomenal. What an amazing fighter he is. He is definitely the future of the 170-pound division. Very athletic, very explosive, and talk about a well-rounded MMA fighter. He is definitely the new breed of UFC fighters.
I just want to let know my fans, I want to stay in the UFC, I want to be a UFC guy, and soon I will be world champion. Thank you very much.
And at the press conference tonight, even Dana White said you're the future of the 170-pound division. How do you feel about that?
It's very gentle to say that, you know. And I trained very hard, you know. It's some people can think it was a lucky shot tonight, but I have to say I trained very hard. You know, I deserve what I do, and now I just want to keep fighting in the UFC, go step by step, and one day I want to have a shot for the title.
Who would have thought that our hero would get a title shot in his very next fight? You say like, only modern UFC can give title shots to such guys like Michael Chandler after one single win in a debut. Here, young St-Pierre, he broke into the promotion, secured 2 victories, then got a crack at Matt Hughes himself. On October 22nd at UFC 50, these two shared the octagon to fight for the Welterweight Championship.
I just go there and do my job, you know. I don't know what to expect, and I know what I'm gonna do. I will dictate the fight, and everybody, I'm gonna shock the world. Everybody gonna be very surprised for my performance, and I will go back with the title.
Well, in some cases, GSP really shocked the world with his performance. It's just that he failed to claim the belt, because he lost to Matt Hughes via armbar with 1 second left in the first round and suffered the first loss in his career.
Like you said, I performed very well, but just at the end of the round, maybe the 5 last seconds of the round, I did a beginner mistake. You know, usually I never did that type of mistake. I think the pressure was it was the first fight I had the pressure like this, and fighting Matt Hughes, you know, Matt Hughes is a monument in the sport, and I fight as a spectator during the last second of the round. Only think about the position. Okay, if you do that, I'm gonna do that. If you do that. Did you? And now, and I don't thought about this position. So you get me. Next time, I'm.
Now you know.
On the one hand, the first defeat slightly pushed GSP into the background in the eyes of the major organization. But on the other hand, the guy was only 20 years old. He showed big promise, drew attention, sold tickets to the events. Everything was ahead of him. Let him assimilate into mixed martial arts, regain his confidence after a loss with a streak of victories, and he will show what he is capable of. In fact, the World's Best League did exactly that. They allowed him to perform at TKO 19, Rage, where St-Pierre defended the welterweight championship he conquered back in 2002. And the performance itself took place in the end of January 2005. There won't be a lot of babbling today because I'm going to let my fist talk. Let's go! In his best traditions, George St-Pierre did not put his team to shame and took the fight to the ground in less than 30 seconds from the start of the fight. Dave Strasser expected such a turn of events, but he still wasn't able to stop it. He simply accepted reality with humility, and what else was left for him to do? For that, the Canadian champion awarded him with a quick finish, not wasting any time and postponing the inevitable. He secured a victory by submission, namely Kimura, and the fight did not last even half a round. A return to the winning path was successful, and that loss to Hughes was already forgotten.
Merci beaucoup, mesdames et messieurs, Georges St-Pierre.
As you understand, the bosses of the World's Best League, which at that time was far from its prime, couldn't waste assets of such caliber as St-Pierre. Even if he happened to be not that masterful of an athlete, they needed George. Absolutely every part of his appearance and what he showed in his fights literally screamed that he was a potential star of combat sports. Sure, the UFC was not in a hurry to put the whole company on his shoulders. The guy was still young, but either way, they were paying very close attention to him. The return of the Canadian prospect happened on April 16th at UFC 52, and the opponent of our hero was Jason Miller.
And some big strike, standing up and go for a quick submission on the ground. You know, I don't know how the fight gonna end, but that's gonna be very exciting, guarantee.
Young Jason managed to last all 3 rounds with our hero, which he deserves credit for, but of course, he couldn't beat St-Pierre. George got a deserved unanimous decision win.
It's the toughest fight of my life. This guy was pretty tough. I tried to submit him a couple of times, never tapped. At one point in the fight, I thought I was fighting an alien, you know. But
you almost had that Kimura almost in our bar. How close were they?
I don't understand. I still don't understand. And I asked Jason personally how come, and he don't understand me either. So I don't know. It's a mystery in my life. I will maybe have the answer one day.
GSP secured his 10th professional win on August 20th. He performed at UFC 54 where he fought Frank Trigg. This time, the prospect delivered a first-round finish. He choked Frank Trigg out and improved his record to 10-1.
Yeah, it was my strategy. My strategy was to make him believe I want to exchange, standing up, and as soon as I can, put him on his back, you know, because from his back, I know he's not effective as he is when he's on top. And I knew if I would put him on his back, I was able to pass his guard and take like the mount or take his back, take a good position on him, and that's what I did.
On November 19th at UFC 56, George St-Pierre went up against Sean Shirk, the guy who after that fight moved down to the lightweight division, conquered the belt and even defended it. We give you this information so you can see the level of the Canadian prospect's opposition at that period of time. An outstanding striking technique of GSP earned him a TKO in the middle of the 2nd round. Sean Shirk was completely destroyed by our hero with no chances to survive.
I want you to listen to me. I'm gonna go on my knees like that and ask the UFC management to give me a world title shot. Please, I want the belt so bad. Give it to me. I'm not gonna do a mistake this time. Give me a chance for the belt. Thank you very much.
I didn't hear nothing about that. I hope I'm gonna have a title shot, but I mean, it's to the UFC management to make it happen. Me, I'm gonna fight everybody. I'm a fighter. That's my job. But hopefully, I hope it's gonna be for a title shot next time.
Though the public was on GSP's side, as they saw him as the future UFC champion, the organization itself wasn't in a hurry to give the prospect a second chance to contest the title. Instead, George was offered a contender's fight against BJ Penn. These two shared the octagon on March of 2006 at UFC 58.
I feel the privilege to fight this guy, and if I would not fight him, he would probably be one of my favorite fighters. But this time I'm not gonna do the same mistake that I did with Hughes. I'm gonna fight him like I fight everybody else. And you will see that I deserve a title shot.
Only a few people could handle a prime BJ, and one of these renowned masters happened to be George St-Pierre, as he beat the legendary athlete via split decision.
I learned to, because when I fought Matt Hughes, remember I quit. Even before I tapped, you know, I mentally quit. And now, I think BJ Penn is the same level than Matt Hughes, but a different fighter, but I mean, different style. But I didn't quit, so I think it's gonna make me stronger, and it's gonna, you know, when you come back stronger after that kind of fight, you know, when you're losing and you come back, it's making you a stronger fighter.
Taking 7 months to recover, get back in shape and proper training camp, GSP prepared for his title shot on November 18th. Our Canadian hero went up against Matt Hughes at UFC 65. But before that, he delivered this very line that the fans remember till this day.
I'm very glad you won that fight, Matt, but I'm not impressed by your performance, and I look forward to fight you in the near future.
In the actual fight, Georges St-Pierre proved his words with deeds. He finished Hughes in the beginning of the second round and finally became the undisputed welterweight champion.
That's amazing. It's a security, a financial security for myself, and it's great. I come from far, and I'm not from a very rich family, so now it's awesome.
The first title defense of a young champion was scheduled for April 7th of 2007. It happened at UFC 69, and the opponent of the Canadian karateka was Matt Serra.
He's a lot better than he used to be, and I'm gonna have to take him very seriously. He's better than I am in submission, so I'm gonna have to use the right strategy and the right tactic against him. Otherwise, it's gonna be a bad night for me. I'm gonna let my punches go, even if I like the guy. I mean, it's business.
Who would have thought that the American could manage to finish the young talent in the very first round? But he managed to do that and snatched his welterweight championship.
I'm a very proud athlete. Of course, I would like to have a rematch. I don't know what's gonna happen, but he's the man. He beat me fair and square, and I'm very sad right now, but I'm gonna have to come back, stronger next time.
Either way, our hero accepted this stroke of bad luck with dignity and respect to his opponent. He knew that time was on his side. At that period, a lot of things depended on his actions. The most important thing was to not get lazy and give in to the emotions and bad thoughts, which catch up to a person at the most inappropriate moments. For example, at night when you can't fall asleep due to a lot of these strange and worrying words at the back of your head, like, maybe it's not for me. If I lose, then I don't deserve this belt. How can I be sure that my fight won't end in the exact same way? And stuff like that. Luckily, even if there were doubts in GSP's life, they were quickly eradicated by his team, which overloaded their fighter with work, so that he could have as little time as possible to stay one-on-one with his inner voice, and instead it would be replaced by exhaustion from hard training and fixing gaps in his defense. The top.
George is one of the very few students who went beyond the teachings of all of his masters. He learned to combine the skills of each one of them, but no one person ever taught George to bring all those skills and merge them. That was done by himself.
We called this section that way only because from that moment on, the breaking one, in our opinion, the career of Georges St-Pierre went uphill so fast that it was impossible to catch up with him. He drew valuable conclusions from the two most important events of his career in the sport. Anyway, let's not beat around the bush and continue our narration. On August 25th at UFC 74, our hero entered the cage to get back in the win column with the help of Josh Koscheck. As time has shown, in the first fight against Koscheck, the Canadian former champion beat him by points and secured a unanimous decision victory.
They like to have a show. I gave a good show tonight, and I want to do something. If they come in Montreal, my people will go crazy. It's on, yeah!
I come back from a huge loss, an humiliation. But it took me a while after that fight to let this thing go away. I was carrying a lot of bricks, and this brick, the name of that brick was Matt Serra. I took that brick and I threw it in the river. I'm sorry, I'm like a poet tonight, but you know what I mean? And now I look up to the future. I change a lot of stuff in my training and also in my entourage, and I can promise my fan that in every single of my next fight, they will see the best Georges St-Pierre, the most well-prepared Georges St-Pierre I can be.
99.9% of the athlete spend too much time working on their physical attribute, and they don't work on their mental. But what they forgot, and what Brian can make me realize, is what control or move or motion, it's the brain. And most important is not only the brain, you have to have a good attitude, a positive attitude going through your sporting event, no matter which discipline you're doing. So I think it's probably the number one, the most important thing you have to work for, the mental game.
Given how highly young St-Pierre was rated by the fans, the matchmakers couldn't help but take advantage of that. Soon, they gave our hero an opportunity to get back into the title picture, and in a rather curious way. While the undisputed champion was busy with other stuff, the World's Best League booked GSP and Matt Hughes for the final fight in the trilogy and put an interim championship on the line at UFC 79.
No matter if I like the guy or not, he's not my friend. It's gonna be all about business, and I'm gonna do my job, and my job is gonna be to destroy my opponent.
No matter how hard the legendary veteran tried to offer George resistance, he ultimately failed to beat him. St-Pierre got the win via armbar at the end of the second round.
Exactly, so that's why I'm gonna take off this belt, because for me, yes, it's a good collection, but doesn't mean nothing to me. Thanks to the UFC to give me that, it's a good honor, but the real champion is Matt Serra, and until I don't get my belt back, I'm not gonna consider myself champion.
Becoming an interim champion of the weight class, GSP automatically secured a #1 contender spot. It's ridiculous to say that now when we have an example in Tom Aspinall, who is about to become an old man waiting for bones, but back then, times were different. Eventually, the matchmakers put George St-Pierre against Matt Serra in the rematch on April 19th of 2008 in the main event of UFC 83.
The best ever, I can't wait.
History has taught us that our hero managed to pay his opponent back with the same TKO in the second round and become the two-time welterweight champion of the UFC.
I feel George was so on point that night. What a fucking night that was too, man. That was insane.
It was 50,000 people,
dude,
right?
Chance of you say Longo doesn't speak quietly. I couldn't hear him in between rounds. Chance of you, Sarah. All I hear was you, Sarah.
That moment marked the beginning of the Canadians' reign. George St-Pierre took over the entire division, becoming its king, lord, and daddy in one. All eyes were only on him, while he was honorably fighting every offered opponent and defending his status of a champion. The first title defense was a fight against John Fitch that happened on August 9th at UFC 87. Fitch was a promising guy with a record of 19-2 and 8 wins in a row inside the major promotion. Also, he was older than George and looked more mature and ready for any situation, which only added to the intrigue in this battle.
I'm in the top shape. I have the best trainer, best training partner. I train myself to fight an army, not a single guy. If an army cannot break me, no man can break me. I'm the type of guy who never make the same mistake twice. And I learned from my mistake. Every time I lost a fight, I know why I lost, I know what I've been doing wrong, and I'm not gonna do the same thing again. It's a different, he bring on the table a different problem than those guys. He's got different tools, different style, but I truly believe that I will be able to solve the problem. I'm fighting John Fitch. John Fitch, he's the most dangerous guy that I've fought so far. I just get through the best training camp of my life. I'm in the best shape of my life, and I look forward for Saturday night. I'm very excited. Thank you.
The first 25-minute fight in George St-Pierre's career ended with a unanimous decision victory. GSP became the first man to beat John Fitch inside the UFC.
He did very well. I was very well prepared, and when you're very well prepared and you train very hard, normally things go well.
It is hard to argue with such a statement, especially coming from one of the greatest performers of all time. But let's not get ahead. When GSP managed to defend his championship after his return, he figured that now things would go differently. He was getting better with every camp and fight, regardless of the aspect he was offered to deal with. This man already knew how to act on the fly. He himself could already become a coach and teach young athletes with fire in their eyes, giving them invaluable experience. But who would put on hold such a successful career on the rise, right? The next bout of our hero took place on January 31st of 2009 against BJ Penn, one of the biggest rematches of that time and with a title at stake.
Like Dana said, this is one of those fights we're gonna make history. I'm ready for it. I've never been so much excited for a fight, and can't wait. I'm ready to go. Thank you.
BJ Penn, the lightweight champion at the time, couldn't withstand GSP's onslaught, and he lost, not being able to make it to the 5th round.
Well, BJ Penn is a very fast starter, and he's got very fast end. And he got small shoulder if you look at him, like boxing shoulder. So I wanted to make the first couple rounds a wrestling match. A lot of clinch, a lot of moving around for him to carry my weight and make the blood goes in his shoulder. So like that, his shoulder would have been heavy, and his hand would not come out as fast as it is as usual. And then after pick him up, standing up, and as I wish later in the fight.
2 title defenses happened to be more than enough for the world's best league to recognize the Canadian as a full-blown star not only in the UFC, but in mixed martial arts as a whole. They fully relied on this guy, put their trust in him, and began doing everything possible to keep St-Pierre's career going up. And there's no better testament to that than his next fight. The world's best league gave the champion a co-main spot at the anniversary UFC 100, headlined by Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir. As it turned out later, this happened to be one of the biggest and most successful events in the history of the organization. And not only thanks to the beast from Minneapolis, the Canadian with his fan base also made a contribution to the promotion of this event, and his opponent was Thiago Alves.
I do that for a living because I love it. I love the lifestyle that it provides me. The day that I will be tired, I just gonna stop.
I've been training after BJ Penn. I took like 1 or 2 weeks off, and then I was back in the gym. So it's been a while. I'm very well prepared, and I can't wait to fight. I'm very excited.
The Brazilian managed to last all 5 rounds with our hero in the cage, but it didn't save him from defeat. GSP successfully defended his title for the 3rd time and entertained his fans with a quality performance.
I want to face the best guy, you know, and right now I don't know. I'm really bad pain, you know, and I'm gonna step back, take a look at it, and we'll talk about it in maybe in a couple of weeks. We'll see.
This fight is also remarkable because it had an interesting episode which demonstrated the exceptionality of not only the champion himself, but also his team. Before going into the final round, in his corner, George told his coaches that he pulled his groin, an injury he already sustained in the past. To which his mentor, Greg Jackson, replied in a passionate manner, "I don't care. I don't care, George. Hey, look at me. This is where champions are made. You understand me? Nothing matters now. Hit him with your groin. You got my mentality." And this son of a gun won. Either way, he kept his right to be called the best welterweight in the world.
Fighting, there is a big science behind it. I believe I'm champion, not because I'm the strongest guy, not because also I'm the more skilled guy. I'm very skilled, I'm very strong, I'm very athletic, I'm fast. But I think the reason why I'm champion is my mind. The way I'm very good to using my skills to neutralize my opponent's skill and make the fight turning to putting the odds on my side. I think that's a key.
You know what the funny part is? That even the most perfect person would be hated for the mere fact of their impeccability. That's the world we live in. In the case with St-Pierre, the critique was that he fought too safely. At the time, one could often encounter comments like, if he is such a powerful champion and great fighter, why the hell does he let his fights go to the hands of the judges? And George continuously deflected this statement with a simple stance that he competes with minimal risk. Every time he enters the octagon, his life is in danger. It's more important for him to not get hit than to hit his opponent and expose himself for a dangerous counterattack. YOLO is definitely not his style, especially after his first fight with Sarah, when George made a promise to never take risks. He already tried it and engaged in an unnecessary exchange after which he lost via TKO. Since then, his tactic was to act smartly, to choose such an angle for an attack on the feet that St-Pierre's opponent wouldn't be able to hit him back. And if he could, then it wouldn't be significant and damaging. You get the logic. The next title defense happened on March 27th of 2010 in the United States. It was UFC 111, where our hero went up against the Englishman Dan Hardy.
Also an opportunity for redemption for me, in a way that I have a chance to succeed where I felt last time in the same exact situation when I fought Matt Serra the first time. Everybody said, oh, he's not ready for you, he doesn't deserve it. Everybody knows what happened. So this situation is the most dangerous situation in my entire career right now. I've been there and I fell the first time, and I won't fail again this time. So for me, it's a good challenge, and it's a time for me to succeed where I fell last time, and I'm never gonna make the same mistake twice.
Even though the fight went the entire distance, throughout that time, the Canadian totally dominated his opponent. He controlled the tide of the events and decided what was going to happen next. And on top of that, he sold 770,000 PPVs, which for that time was more than a great figure if we consider that GSP wasn't a showman.
I'm gonna tell you the truth, I'm not happy about my performance. I won the fight, but it's like to make a similarity. It's like a sprinter, a 100-meter sprinter who's world champion. He sprint, he win the 100-meter, let's say in 10 seconds, and if in a few months later he have another race, he win again the race, but he win in 10 seconds still. So he won't be happy. He's still world champion, but he haven't beat his time. It's a little bit the same thing that happened to me tonight. I won, but I haven't beat my performance of last time. So I'm not happy. I wanted to finish, have a clean win. And for me, like this, it's not clean.
And though the champion himself was feeling down, the president of the World's Best League was quick to defend his performance in the eyes of the public, expressing his opinion on that matter.
He's still one of the best. He's the best 170-pounder in the world. He's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and I think people love him, man. Listen, the kid sits up here and he's just so classy, and he sits there and admits that he wishes he did better, and people just love him. Not every fight you have is going to be the best fight you've ever done, but I think because of this fight, he's going to come out and look better next time.
By the end of 2010, the matchmakers put Georges St-Pierre against Josh Koscheck in a big rematch. This very American who already fought our hero back in 2007 in a Contenders fight. Fifth title defense of the Canadian was scheduled for UFC 124.
He's the perfect guy to fight. He's a perfect villain. I think I'm a better overall fighter than Josh Koscheck. I think I'm better everywhere than he is. And even in a wrestling match, I would not be scared to wrestle him. I think I'm a better wrestler.
This time, the numbered event sold 800,000 PPVs, and the champion once again defended his title and status. He backed every word with actions, securing a dominant victory over Koscheck.
I go as planned, but not the result I want to take him out. For me, because I fight for me now. As I fight to beat my previous performance. I did a little bit, but I didn't in another way. But yeah, I beat him first time with wrestling, second time boxing.
Despite victories by decisions in the main events, the professional career of GSP was still going up. On April 30th of 2011, the World's Best League went to Canada to put on UFC 129, where they put the champion against his next victim in Jake Shields.
Jake Shields haven't lost in 6 years. You have won 15 fights in a row, but you haven't fought me. UFC world title, it's a difference. That guy that I wanted to fight for a long time. I think he's the greatest fighter in welterweight now. He's a guy to beat. The best guy gonna clash together that night, and it's gonna be a good fight. He doesn't know what I want to do to him. I can try to knock him out standing up or knock him out on the floor, try to submit him. I'm not afraid to go on the floor with him. That's something different that he never faces before. Everyone that he have fought, they were afraid to go on the floor with him, but not me.
Sure as hell, because it's like, man, like so many idiots in everywhere like saying, oh yeah, they look past that fight, but I don't like that feeling. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. Jake is a thinking fighter. He's the toughest guy, and also he's gonna bring the best of George St-Pierre. You know, he's gonna bring the best of me. That's why I'm very excited for this fight. And you know, it's just as I look at his record, I'm sure I would have put him against all the challengers that I've faced before. He would have all beat them. You know, so I'm ready for the fight. I'm the most well prepared I've ever been. Well, I want the finish. You know, it's hard to finish a guy that doesn't allow them. You know, doesn't completely goes forward. You know, to attack me. You know, a lot of guys but I know one thing is Jake Shield gonna bring the best of George St-Pierre, and that's why I'm looking forward to this fight.
No matter how hard the champion tried to score the finish, he got another unanimous decision. But don't get it twisted, we know that Jake Shield's scalp is one of the most valuable on St-Pierre's resume.
Heart of a champion, man. They don't give up. There was a problem with his eye and he stuck through it like he always does, you know. And I'm really happy with his performance. You know, he's a true warrior. He sucked it up and he did what he had to do and he won the fight. It wasn't an easy fight, you know, but he did it. I was really happy.
After breaking the record for the most title defenses in the welterweight division, George St-Pierre gained a higher status among other champions in the organization. And as you understand, he was not willing to stop on that. In the second half of 2011, there was information that UFC planned to book GSP with Nick Diaz, whose latest performance in Strikeforce impressed Dana White so much that he signed him immediately. These two were supposed to fight at UFC 137 in Las Vegas. However, there was a little shuffle at the press conference to the event. The president said that the Stocktonian would be replaced by Carlos Condit for the fact that Diaz did not attend the meeting with the media. And now Nick would fight Penn. On October 18th, it was announced that the fight between Condit and St-Pierre was cancelled due to the champion injuring his knee. Carlos refused to fight anybody else on short notice and said that he would wait for George, preparing to face him in the beginning of 2012. The league did not really like it. That's why they put on a fight between GSP and Nick Diaz, who beat Penn at the same UFC 137. The matchmakers planned their bout for UFC 143, but in December, it turned out that our hero tore his ACL, which automatically stopped him from performing and training for the next 10 months. Nobody wanted to take away GSP's belt for now. That's why at UFC 143, the organization put Carlos Condit against Nick Diaz with an interim title on the line, which of course went to Condit. In the end, up to August of 2012, it was unclear when GSP would come back, until he himself announced this happy news on social media. Eventually, the 7th title defense of GSP took place on November 27th at UFC 154.
I believe I'm different, and I'm different than what I was. I'm a more improved version. But yes, because I changed my schedule, especially my last fight, it was my worst fight. I was kind of burned out, and mentally and physically, and now I don't feel that way now. I'm happy to be here. I have a smile on my face. You used to see me before a fight. I used to be, oh God, another. You know, I was tired. You know, and I want to get to the end right away. But now I try to appreciate every second of everything that I live now. Whoever, if I'm doing the weigh-in, the media, the fight, I want to appreciate and live every second of it, because I appreciate how important it is for me, and I want to be able to live to feel that forever.
And though our hero managed to secure another win by 50-47, his face displayed all the consequences of fighting such a dangerous beast as Carlos. And the layoff due to injuries also affected him. But still, George St-Pierre kept his spot at the top of the division.
It's been a long time I haven't fought in the octagon, and it's a feeling that you lose when you haven't done it for a long time. And I definitely felt it tonight, but I'm sure I'm gonna get back stronger from it. I want to push myself and see where I can go. I want to be the best, so we'll see. I just finished the fight. I got hit a lot on the head. I need some vacation, reconsider things, see what's gonna happen, and talk to some people. We'll see.
After getting rid of absolutely every contender in the weight class, George St-Pierre got into a spot where the only thing he could get in the near future were rematches. So the world's best league ultimately booked him with Nick Diaz for the UFC 158, especially when there was more than enough hype around this rivalry.
There's a story between us. It's a big fight everybody wants to see. Nick wanted to have that fight for a long time. I want to have that fight for a long time. Now it's time to do it. And when it's time to do it, you have to take the opportunity and do it.
They like to make me look like the bad guy. George likes to say I remind him of the bullies that picked on him growing up, or they had to deal with. You know, I'm gonna say like, how many times you had a gun to your head, George? How many times someone put a gun to your head? How many of your best friends been shot through the chest with a .45? Or how many of your best friends been stomped, put to sleep into a coma? And you know, we all had to deal with these things in life. Should I go? I mean, how many kids put gum in your hair growing up? Like, should I go further back? I mean, we have to deal with these things. You know, it's hard times for everybody, and a lot of times that's what makes us fighters. And if it wasn't for that, I hate everybody pulling the bully card. All bullies, I hate bullies. You know, I doubt he was ever a hopeless person. And you know, if it wasn't for what I went through, who knows if I would have made it in life? Who knows if I'd be who I am today? So, you know, I just had to live through it and work through it. But I don't go and point the finger and decide that people are the bully, like who, you know, tortured me as a child. I don't want anybody to see anybody hurt. I don't believe anybody out here, you know, working towards greatness deserves to be beat down and smashed in. I just don't. That's not how the fans out there that, you know, they like violence. People like violence.
The main event in Montreal was a success. Everybody was satisfied with this 25-minute scrap, which eventually led to our hero defending his championship for the 8th time.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say something to Nick. He made a great job promoting the fight. He's a good guy. Nick Diaz is a good guy. And please, give him a hands up for Nick Diaz, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
But there's more. At the same event, the champion was called out by Johnny Hendricks. Let's recall how it went down.
GSP, hey, if you win tonight, I want to see you here in 5 months and fight you guys. I know, hey, I know you guys are GSP fans, but guess what? I earned it. GSP, please give me that. If not, I'll fly to your house, I'll hire a ref, and we'll do something about it.
Johnny Hendricks really earned his title shot. He has fought in the UFC since 2009, had a record of 15-1, and throughout that time lost only to Ricky Story via decision. It happened back in December 2010. 6 victories in a row had to be more than enough to fight for the championship, and the matchmakers agreed with that. They put the Contender against George St-Pierre on November 16th in the main event of UFC 167.
He's the #1 contender for a reason. He poses a big threat to me, and I'm in the best shape of my life. And I, like you say in English, I left no stone unturned, and I'm physically, mentally better than I ever been. So by doing this, and my confidence is very high, and even though he's posing a lot of threat, I'm confident I'm gonna win the fight.
The battle with Hendricks happened to be the closest and most controversial in GSP's career, because in the conclusion of 25 minutes, he managed to defend his title via split decision. However, George's battered face indicated that he didn't look like the winner on that night.
I thought I won 3 rounds out of 5. I thought the last round was the decisive one, and I left everything I had. Like I left it all in the octagon. People can say whatever they want, it's up to the judges, but I give my best, and
my hands up to Jon Jones. I get very emotional after a fight. You know, I have so much stress, so much stuff going on in my life right now, and I don't know what to say. I mean, it is what it is.
As history taught us, it was the last title defense of Georges St-Pierre, after which he decided to retire from the professional sport. GSP explained his decision with popularity and high demand, and also personal problems which did not let him work like he used to.
Last week I was doing for the movie Captain America, the filming, then now I'm doing the interview. But every day I find time, I go to Freddie Roach, work on my boxing. And this period of this time I'm on my boxing pretty much. And when I'm gonna go to New York, for example, because I have to go to New York for the book promo and stuff, I'm gonna do my jiu-jitsu with John Danaher. I'm gonna be doing jiu-jitsu. When I go back in Montreal, I mixed up everything, you know.
The public was confused by such an abrupt retirement from the sport when a fighter in his prime leaves the top. But the public is meant to ask these kinds of questions, right? George's comments were the following.
There's different reasons why I've took a break, you know, and you know, what I can say is I'm not sure. I don't know right now. You know, if I want to come back or not. I'm not sure when. If I do, so it's you know, it's still the same answer than before.
All right, let's not beat around the bush and put everything on the table. Eventually, Georges St-Pierre came back. He did it 4 years later in November of 2017, moving up to the middleweight division and challenging Michael Bisping at UFC 217 with a title at stake.
That is the plan as of right now. Whoever wins this fight fights GSP. But GSP's people are here today to speak to me, so we'll see what happens. We'll see how that goes.
When I left off, like more than 4 years ago, I knew I wanted to come back because I was not in an happy place. I had a lot of personal problems, and I should have even stopped earlier than after my fight with Hendricks. If I would have stopped earlier, I would have maybe come back earlier as well. I felt like I was like kind of a feeling of a claustrophobic feeling, you know, like I couldn't breathe well, I couldn't sleep well, my mind.
Too much pressure?
Too much pressure, personal problems, so much stuff. A lot of stuff happened to me that it's still too early in my life, and for the respect of some people, I know I couldn't talk about it. One day I will. All mixed together. I knew it was a drug issue in the sport. I did feel well, and I was trying to perform under those conditions, and it was catching up to me.
Yeah. I think Vegas got the best out of you, unfortunately.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because I'm going to get the best out of you, so shut the fuck up.
No, you won't. No, you won't.
You're talking about being a fucking welterweight. You are a welterweight, okay? I'm a middleweight. I can't wait to square up against you. Stand up. Stand up and look at the size of me and look at the size of you. Go back to fucking Canada. When's the fight? When do you want to fight? Because I'll fight right now. I'll fight right now, motherfucker. That's the difference between you and me. So you look at me.
You don't scare me, not even one bit. Not even one bit.
I'm not trying to scare you.
I know, you really don't.
I'm not trying to scare you, but here's the fact. I'm a real fighter. I'm a real fighter. You're an athlete, and good for you. You're a very, very good athlete, but you're an athlete, I'm a fighter.
Difference. I set it up differently, and you know, I had time to take time for myself. You know, I feel rejuvenated, I'm more hungry, and I'm happy. Now I'm gonna be on the other side of the cage. I'm the challenger, so I'm going to challenge the champion for the belt.
The difference is that he can't take steroids anymore because of USADA. That's the main difference. But I'll tell you what hasn't changed. He's got the same fucking suit on as the last press conference. Come on, George, you got some money, man. Buy a new suit. What the fuck? You look like a history teacher. He didn't want to fight because Johnny Hendricks hit him in the head so many times, he thought he'd been abducted by aliens.
The numbered event featuring St-Pierre and Bisping sold 875,000 PPVs. Sure, it's not what Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey or Conor McGregor brought in, but it was a big number and a great income for the world's best league. But speaking about GSP's performance, it was absolutely successful. Our hero choked the pirate out in the third round and became the UFC middleweight champion.
I feel great. My dream come true, and I have no word. You know, like I've been waiting for this for 4 years, and I did it, man. I'm very happy.
After achieving a desired goal, Georges St-Pierre left the sport for good. On December 7th, he vacated the middleweight championship, holding it for 34 days. In the span of the next couple of years, the UFC tried to drag him out of retirement to put him against Khabib Nurmagomedov or Nate Diaz, but our hero was adamant. If he makes a certain decision in his life, then it's the final one.
Without worthy adversaries, I could not be a true champion. There would be no story of Georges St-Pierre GSP. Honestly, even though I won against some of them, it doesn't mean I'm necessarily better than they were. It just meant that I was fortunate to be the best man that night that we fought at that certain location at that specific point of time. I love this sport and I'll never really leave it. I will forever be a fan and an advocate of how martial art play a positive role for both individual and society.
Georges St-Pierre is an all-time legend. He is a man who wrote his name down in the history of martial arts forever. GSP is not just a champion, he is a symbol of perfection, embodiment of discipline, and a living proof that greatness is achieved not only with talent, but also with titanic efforts. 9 title defenses in the UFC, 2 belts in different weight classes, his resume speaks for itself. But numbers is a part of the story. Every one of his fights was a lesson in jiu-jitsu mastery, speed and effectiveness of strikes, tactical genius. He turned the octagon into a chessboard where he always was 3 steps ahead. But the true legacy is not in George's records, but rather how he set them. St-Pierre got up after every fall. Losses to Matt Hughes and Sarah only fired him up, while injuries and doubts hardened his spirit. His journey is a story of persistence, where every failure became a step to the new heights. His respect towards his opponents and modesty outside the cage made him a role model. Even after retiring from the sport, George continues to inspire with his training, support of young talents, and also genuine faith in that the sport changes lives. Today, looking back at his path, we not only see a champion, but also a man who proved that one can be great, remaining a down-to-earth person like all people in this world. Georges St-Pierre is not just an MMA legend, he is an eternal light for everyone who believes that spirit strength, work and honor are more important than any titles. Thank you GSP, you changed the sport forever, and as long as there are people who want to become better, your story will live on.
Have you ever slept well before a fight?
Never.
Never.
Only one time.
Which fight?
When I fought Matt Sarah. And I got knocked out. And then after that knocked out, I got so scared that it happened again. It's the most humiliating day of my career. I was so angry. Like I said, I was like putting too much on myself. It started there. It's like I didn't even want to go to buy eggs at the grocery store because people they look, oh, you got knocked out. Like, I thought everybody cares about me. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares. It's only a small percentage of population. Nobody gives a damn. And even if they do, what? You make a mistake, you zig when you should have zagged, you get clipped. So what? Everybody make mistake. I'm not impressed by your performance. Not impressed by your performance.
Yeah, the term's got to be up front, or it's not
load it up on the page.
So.
Not impressed by your performance.